Hello, my name's Julie. I'm from the Spellbound Bead Company, and this is the first in a series of videos to introduce you to the techniques for making your own beautiful tiaras. To start off with, I want to show you how to make a simple tiara band. Now you can buy manufactured sprung steel bands like this. They come in a variety of designs, some with ends that turn out, some that don't, some are flat in cross section, some are round. The problem with the majority of them though is they are sprung. This means that if it's not exactly the right size for your head, they can pinch or they can gape, and also they're a set length, and this can be quite awkward sometimes if you're making them for someone who's got a smaller head, perhaps a young child, or if you have got a very minimal hairstyle and there's nowhere to hide all of this band at the back. When we make tiaras, we tend not to use these sprung bands. We make our own band, and that's what I'd like to show you how to do now. Using wire to make our Alice band gives us much more flexibility in the type of design we can make. As you can see here with the pippin design, we've actually used a wire band and we've shaped it into a naturalistic curve, which when we've decorated gives us this lovely meandering line across the hair. This is made with crystals and pearls, and it's a very simple technique that we'll be showing you in a later video. If you want to add more things or heavier things to your Alice band, you need to have a more substantial band. So there is an option of using two pieces of wire together, as we see here, and this is what we would call a double Alice band, and that's what I'm going to show you how to make. I've cut myself two pieces of 1.2mm wire. Now, having made lots of Alice bands before, I can guesstimate approximately how much I need. But if you'd like to measure it against your own head, you need to do it very, very carefully. You need to measure from 2 centimetres above your ear, across the front of your head, so you're about 2 centimetres behind your hairline, to the top of the other ear, about 2 centimetres above the other ear. Be extremely careful. The cut ends of the wire are sharp and you're working around your face and your eyes. So do it with care, and it's often easier to do it in front of the mirror so you can see that you've got your measurements absolutely right. When you're happy with the shape and the size, cut it off, adding about 2 centimetres just for error. When we first make our tiara bands, it tends to be that the design travels from one side to the other and we don't quite get it centred. If we can give ourselves a little bit of extra, that helps us to get a really good professional finish. Cut a second piece of wire to match, and now we're going to join them together. We join them together with a piece of 0.4mm wire. This is a soft tempered wire, so we're able to do lots of small turns and binding motions with it. If we were to use a half hard wire for this, it would become too brittle and it would break. So we have a half hard wire for the Alice band. That gives us the spring, so it will grip the head, and we have a soft tempered wire to do the winding with. Now I've cut about 75 centimetres of the 0.4 wire, and I'm going to find the centre of that length. I'm going to hold the two Alice bands together, and I'm going to offer up the 0.4mm wire to the centre. I'm going to pick up one side and I'm going to wrap around the Alice band 2 or 3 times in the centre just to get myself started. Now this side of the 0.4mm wire is going to come this way, and this side of the 0.4mm is going to come this way. However, before I proceed, I need to get my 2 thicker pieces of wire sorted out. When I finish, I want one piece of wire to be sitting on top of the other all the way around. So that's one thick wire sitting on top of the other thick wire. It doesn't want to be one outside the other like a rainbow. We want one on top of each other all the way around, so that when we look at it that way, we see the 2 thicknesses of wire all the way. This gives us something that's more rectangular in cross section, so if we want to add things that stand up, it will help to prevent rotation. I'm going to start wrapping out to this side, and I found from experience that doing it more quickly gives you a neater result. I know it's counterintuitive, but it is the case. And the bindings don't need to be really close together. In fact, it's better if they're not. As you can see, mine are between 6 and 7 millimeters apart. And I'm just wrapping and wrapping and wrapping until I get towards the end. I'm going to do the same with the other side. Now, as I'm right-handed, I've flipped it round, but you can work out to the other side with your left hand if you want. And just continuing to work the same sort of speed, making sure that those 2 thicker wires are sitting side by side to give me that double layer I want all the way around the band. Nearly at the end, I'm going to stop. Now, having joined 2 pieces of 0.2mm wire together, it already feels much firmer, and I'll be able to do quite an elaborate design on that frame if I want to. However, at the moment I have some raw ends at the back of the design. Now, if I was going to do a complex design and I wasn't sure exactly where I wanted my centre point to be, perhaps I wanted to do an asymmetric design, I wasn't sure exactly where the ends of the Alice band would end up, I would leave these unfinished ends until I'd completed the design. Then I can get it absolutely right on the head, trim to length, and then finish it off. However, just for a demonstration, I'd like to show you how to finish off these raw ends so everything is nice and neat. To finish it off, I'm going to add some little ribbon loops. One will come out on one side and one on the other, and that will give you a securing position for hair grips or hairpins. And I'm going to cover up the junction with some floristry tape. Now, this is a plastic floristry tape. It's interesting material. It doesn't stick to anything except itself, really, and it doesn't stick to itself until it's stretched. You'll see what I mean when I come to use it. It's available in several colours, mainly brown and green, but you can get it in white, and it does paint. So if I have somebody who's got very dark hair and I don't want the white to show against it, I paint it with some metallic nail polish and it will blend in with the silver or gold of the Alice band itself. Right. First things first, I need to wind the 0.4mm wire back a little bit from each side. So I've exposed the raw ends on each side. I now need to get it to the right sort of shape and the right fit. Again, you can try it on your head and get the right size and the right fit so it feels comfortable. Now, I tend to find that a slightly elongated ellipse is the best shape to grip the head successfully. When you've got it to the right size, you need to trim it up so that both lengths of both thick wires are the same. So same length here, same length here. I'm now going to deal with this extra thickness we have here. So I'm going to cut back one side of the wire by about 1 centimetre. So now I've got a long raw end and a short raw end. I'm going to take a pair of flat pliers and I'm going to fold the long end approximately halfway along. Keep folding it and squash it flat so that the raw end of the long side touches against the raw end of the short side. I've now got a bent wire end here which isn't sharp, and I've protected this short sharp end by covering it with this longer bent end. I'm now going to bring the 0.4 wire back up. Now we're going to add our ribbon loop. Now these are optional, but if your bride or your prom queen is going to do anything approaching dramatic dancing, a couple of hair grips is sometimes a good idea. So I'm going to do a little loop with some metallic ribbon. Again, it doesn't have to be metallic, but I think it's quite nice to blend in with the metal. I'm going to hold it close to the end of the band so that the loop just pokes over the end. And I'm going to bind it on with the 0.4mm wire. Bind it on nice and tight, and now I need to trim off the wire. Now you can trim it with wire cutters if you want, but to get a neater finish, if you just hold with your thumbnail and twirl the end of the wire, as you do that the wire becomes brittle and it breaks absolutely where you want it to break. I'm going to do exactly the same at the other end, so I'm going to trim this one back. And again we're bending and squashing. There we go, so we've got the cut end of the longer length up against the cut end of the shorter length. Bring the 0.4mm wire back up, fold your ribbon in half, offer it up, and you can just offer it up to one side of the band, you don't have to sandwich the band in the loop. Wrap over with your 0.4, make sure it's firm, and then we'll do that little wiggle to break the wire off. And that's a much more satisfactory way of breaking the wire off and making it nice and neat. I'm just going to give that a little press with my flat nose pliers to make sure everything's neat. And now I'm going to finish off with my floristry tape. Now, if I stretch this, you can see it's going a little bit translucent, and it stretches and it stretches, and it's when it's stretched like this that it clings back on itself. It's rather like cling film in that respect. It's still not sticky, but it's the sort of tension in the tape that holds it down. So that's what we're going to do as we attach it to our band. So I'm going to hold the end of the tape with my thumb because it won't stick on its own. So it needs to be held with your thumb and stretch. Oops. Start that again. Stretch as you bind. And just a little bit of a stretch. Keep binding. And binding over the junction, and that's nicely covered. I can feel there's no sharp edges. I'm happy with that all the way around, and now I just need to finish off the tape. Now the tape doesn't stick down if you cut it, you need to tear it, so you pull until you get that torn edge, and then stick down that torn edge and it grips back onto itself. And it's really firm. Give it a bit of a squeeze, and that's a nice permanent neat finish that covers up all those raw ends. We've got the same here. I'm going to do the same and bind. Now the temptation is with this tape to use more than is necessary. Often you only need a tiny amount, and from the 7 or 8 centimetres I cut, I stretched that a little bit, so I've probably got more than half of it left. And there is your Alice band complete. Either ready to decorate with wire, with flowers, with silk ribbon, whatever you want to do. In later videos we'll show you how to add stamens to it to make a spiky icicle style tiara, or to make one with stamens for a current and up-to-date naturalistic look tiara.